yesterday we just have written till here. So just entering the username, entering the password, and then if you remember, see, we have not added the objects from application yesterday. So application was not available yesterday. So what did we do? We created the object directly in the repository. We have given our own properties and values. But since you have given your own value there, just by guessing, like okay, this might be the property value. Then now you run the automation script. Okay, you run the automation script. Now see whether those objects are properly identified or not. The property values what we have given are proper or not. So you need to verify. So let it get executed. And now it's launching the browser. Okay, see, it entered the username and it entered the password, but it is trying to click on login button. It's entered username and password actually here, but it is trying to click on login button. But let's see, okay, what happens here. So cannot identify the object btn login class of web button. So that means, okay, it is not able to identify or locate the object that web button. So whenever it is identified, whenever you get this error like cannot identify, first you understand whether that object is really existing. Manually, first you go and check whether that object is there in the application or not. Okay, if that object is there in the application, then the problem could be this time is, okay, property values what you have stored in the repository, or maybe you have defined in the object in the descriptive programming also. When you are not using repository, you can go with something called descriptive programming. So, but in the descriptive programming also, you define properties and values for the object. So, whatever the properties and values that you have defined could be different from the real properties and values of the object which is in the application. So, what you do now is you stop the execution and btn login is not being identified, right? Then open object repository first. You have associated shared repository, right? All the objects will be loaded in the object repository window. Then btn login. So name is btn login and HTML tag is input we have used. Now see whether what is the property values of that object in the application. Spy on that particular object. Okay. So HTML ID is btn login, but name is actually login, but in the repository it is btn login. This is the reason why object is not being identified. So now what you do is you need to update the shared repository. To update the shared repository, you will not be able to update in object repository window. What you need to do? Open object repository manager and open that particular shared repository, whatever you need to update. And this is the repository. So go to that particular button. You will have to click on enable editing. By default, it will be displayed in read-only mode. After opening that shared repository, click on enable editing. Then go to that particular object and then modify that object here. This is how you update the shared repository. So remember, shared repository can be updated only from object repository manager, and you will not be able to update it from object repository window. Okay. So now I have updated it and see whether it is updated in the property value. So you don't need to update it in action again. So as soon as you update in the shared repository and save it, then everywhere wherever you have associated that shared repository, it will automatically impact. Now let's see whether it will work or not. See here, what I am doing is, every time whenever I am running the script, I am manually closing the browser, right? And then running, opening a new application through script. But when you are automating an application, right, you should not have any manual intervention in between. Intervention in the sense, okay, manually you should not perform any action. Every action only automation tools should perform. Okay. So in such cases, closing the browser manually before I run the script is not a good idea. That is not recommended. So before you launch the application, your application, all existing browsers or all existing applications must be closed. We need to write some piece of code to close all the browsers. Wait for some time, we will get that in the descriptive programming, how we can close all the browsers and all. Yeah. Now let's click the login button. Yeah. Fine. So it's executed now. Let's see what is the result now here. Last run results. Login to the application. Login is successful. Fine. So what we did is now we have created the script for login. Let's continue further. Okay. So next what I have to do is I need to create the employee. I need to create the employee. Then to create an employee, what you can do is first, understand first what you need to do. Understand what are all the objects that you need to do to add those objects to the object repository first. Then I need to add them to the shared repository since we are using shared repository. Then click on open the shared repository, click on enable editing, start adding the objects. Now if you see here, it is adding in different browser objects. But see, normally what happens is, we are not dealing with multiple browsers. We are dealing with only single browser. But only navigation is being different. That means it is navigating from one page to another page and all. Okay, only navigation is different, but we are not dealing with different browser objects here. But when you add the object to the repository, instead of adding that object in existing repository, existing browser object, it is creating one more browser object. That means hierarchy will be changed again. The reason why it is creating a new browser object is, for existing browser, what properties we are using? Name as orange HRM, ordinal identifier as creation time 0, and here also name as orange HRM and creation time 0. So both the properties are same, but still it is adding to a different browser object, and let's see why it is. It is still creating a new browser object. Properties, same property, right? We are using name, we are using the name here. We are using creation time as 0 and we are using creation time as 0. Okay, while still it is adding different browser object. Whenever the properties are different, then it will create one more browser object. Just wait for 1 second. So it should be like when you are working with one application, right? It should be one browser, one page, and all the objects should be on the same page. If you add multiple page objects in the repository, right? In your script also, you need to write multiple hierarchies. That will be a problem. Maintenance will be very difficult. Okay, I think it should be the reason because instead of adding, we created this object. Still, it should not do it. Why it is adding two browser objects? Okay, I'll check it. Let it do right now. Add PIM link. And then you need to click on add employee link, right? Click on add employee. You can copy these objects to this page. Okay, so that means every time we will be dealing with this same browser, same object, same page object, and then all these programs. So actually, what you need to do is you need to add that object under same browser. You should not create multiple browser objects and multiple page objects. Now, what you can do is, this is for login that you have created, right? Login. Next, what you do is, with browser rhrm.page rhrm, okay, then you can say dot link of tam dot click dot link add employee dot click. When you click on add employee link, it has to navigate to add employee page. How can you see it is navigated to add employee page or not? So if this particular element add employee displays, then it is navigated to add employee link. Then what you can do is add that object to the repository. Add that web element, add employee. PHP element exist dot link of dot element, right? Web element it is. It's a web element of add employee dot exist. Okay. Then if check element equals to true, then you can say report event with pass. Okay, in case if that element exists, write a pass statement. Say that click on add employee link. Okay, so new employee creation page has been opened. In case if that link element exists, then it is open. The creation, create new employee page. Else, you can say report event failed. Click on add employee link. Then new employee creation page is not open, unable to continue with execution. Something like that you can provide. Then what you can do, exit. In case if that element does not exist, you will not be able to continue with the execution, so stop it. Okay, in case if it is exist, then you can continue with the remaining line of code. Right. So now, next what you can do is, we need to enter what we have to do exactly. First we need to enter the first name, we need to enter the last name, middle name, and then we need to retrieve the employee ID, current employee ID, whatever the employee ID is there. You have to retrieve from the application. So you have to retrieve that employee ID, then you need to select the location, and then you need to click on save button. Some actions I need to perform. Then add all these objects to the repository. First you need to enter first name, then you need to enter last name, Then you need to enter middle name, and you need to enter or you need to retrieve the employee ID, and then you need to select the location, and then you need to enter. You need to click on save button. Okay, all the objects you need to add to the repository and under the same browser. So normally it won't get created, but I need to check why it is being created now. A new browser object that is let it be now. Okay, so what you can do now, dot web edit of first name dot set test some employee ID that you are entering. Sorry, first name dot web edit of last name dot set emp some employee ID that you are entering. Okay, now what I have to do is the employee ID is auto populated there. So what I have to do, I don't want to set the value into the employee ID field. Instead of setting the value, I need to retrieve the value. I need to retrieve the value whatever is displayed inside the edit field, which is there in the application. Remember, the object or the field which is there in the application is called as runtime object. Okay, you got it right. There are two things: test object and runtime object. Test object means the object which you have stored in the repository. Runtime object means the object which is in the application. So now, from where you need to retrieve this employee ID? From the object which is in the application. Nothing but the runtime object. From runtime object you need to get the value. Then how do you get the value from the application? Remember, for any edit field, the value whatever is displayed inside that edit field will be set to one property called value. Property name is value. So the value, current value whatever is there here will be set to something called value property. So if you want to retrieve the value of it, that is, you have to retrieve the value of particular property, whatever it is. It's a property name itself value. If you want to see that, what is value then? Whatever the value currently in that particular field, that is the value property. Now if I change the value, some value I am just changing here. By that particular object now, what is the value? Whatever the current value is there in edit field, that current value is nothing but value property. So what I need to do now, if I want to retrieve the value of that particular edit field, retrieve the value of value property. That's it. But from where? From the object which is in the application, nothing but runtime object. So runtime object property value has to be retrieved now. Then how do we do that? This is important. Write down a method called get RO property. Method name is get RO property. Get RO property. See here, I'm just there's a method name. Get no space. There is a method name here. Get RO property. This method is used to. This method is used to retrieve the property value of a runtime object. Okay, so there is an input for this particular property. It's a mandatory property, and input, and the input is name of the property. Get RO property of property name. That means that from which property you need to retrieve the value. Now let's say, like, okay, when the object is disabled or enabled. There will be a property called disabled. If the disabled false, that means object is enabled. If disabled true, that means object is disabled. If you want to check whether that object is enabled or disabled, there should be some validation. Say, okay, object should be disabled by default. When I enter some value into the field, then only that object should get enabled. Just consider that. If you want to check whether an object is disabled or enabled, there will be a property called disabled. So do one thing for that validation by using getArrow property with the value of disabled property. If that value of that particular property is false, that means it is enabled. If it is true, then it is disabled. Okay? Or a checkbox is selected or unselected. If you want to do that, there will be one property called checked. If the checkbox is selected, checked will be true. If the checkbox is not selected, checked will be false. So if you want to validate the using script, if you want to validate whether the checkbox is selected or not selected, what you do? getArrow property of checked. Then if you give this, then if that is returning a true, that means it is selected. If that is returning false, then it is not selected. But instead of say true or false, normally it returns 0, 1. 1 stands for true, 0 stands for false normally. Okay? But here, I am not checking whether it is enabled or disabled or checked or unchecked, something like that. But I need to retrieve the current value, whatever is there in that particular edit field. So the current value in an edit field will be set to one property called value. Property name is value. So if you want to retrieve the value from that field, you retrieve the value of value property from the application, nothing but runtime object. So that is what getArrow property stands for. getArrow means Arrow stands for runtime object. Get runtime object property value. Okay. So connected to that object, whatever I have given here, employee ID. Then from that object property, okay, whatever the property name I provide, getArrow property of property name. If you provide the property name, then it will retrieve the value of that particular property. Then you can say int emp id, store that in a variable that returns one value and store it in a variable. Then you can just write a message in the report window saying, okay, so employee ID was populated, so employee ID was automatically populated. So in this case, what you do is, instead of pass or fail, I am not validating anything, I am just retrieving the value, pass that information. Just done means providing the information to the report, that's it, not pass or not fail. Then step name, get auto populated emp id. Emp id is populated as, you can say int emp id. Just providing the information. It then means not pass or not fail, only information that you are passing to the report window. You are just passing an information saying that this employee was automatically populated. Okay, now I am entering the first name, I am entering the last name, I am getting the employee ID. Next, what you have to do, you need to select the location. Then how do you select the location here? It is a, remember, this is a web edit class, this is a button class, and this is the list class. Web list you call it as. Also you can call it as a drop down, okay, or you can call it as a list box or web list, everything you can call it as. Okay. So this is called as a web list. So do one thing. Dot web list. So to use this dot, you must have to use with there. If you are not using with, you say set to open equals to the browser dot page, then opens dot web list, opens dot web edit, yesterday whatever we have seen. You can use in that way also. Web list of so and so web list dot. What I have to do this time? I need to select the value, right? I don't want to set the value, I need to select it. The values are already populated. Out of all populated values, I need to select one. Then use a method called select. So select method is used to select one value from a web list. Nothing but a drop down box. Select all, then you can provide the number there. select of 0 first value, select of 1 second value, or select of 2 third value. Like that you can do. Or if you know the value whatever need to be selected, you can directly do like this. Now I am saying it as maybe German regional HQ. I will do. Remember, it is case sensitive. You must have to give in the same case. Then you can say German regional HQ. Is it the same way? It is displayed German regional HQ. Fine. Next, what I have to do? Dot web button of save dot click. You need to click on save button. Getting what I am saying here? It's very simple. Just understand how that object added to the repository, what objects you added to the repository. Before you add that, understand what objects that you need to deal with. When a screen is displayed, you will not deal with all the objects in the screen. Some of the objects are irrelevant for us. That means not required for us. Whatever the objects required for this particular test case, add those objects to the repository. Then you must have to associate that repository to the action. Then you can access all those objects. Then navigate through the hierarchy of that object. Then write the method. What method needs to be used for that? It depends on what action that you need to perform. Okay. Let's see whether it will work or not. Okay. Now, see if I run the script. What happens here? Again, it is launching one more browser. It's launching one more browser object. But it should not launch multiple, browser objects. In case if that RMHRM browser is already there, what it has to do is it has to take the same RMHRM object. Same RMHRM browser instead of launching one more browser. That means if the browser is already there, RMHRM browser is already there, then do not launch it again. Okay, do not launch it again. So I will see that again in a moment. Okay. Okay. So now what I will do is here, if login is already there, it should not execute login one more time. If we are executing from the beginning again, then it has to execute login under login browser, login under. Okay. So now what I am going to do is just understand here. Function launch browser. I am creating functions. Each small functionality I am making it as a function here. So launch browser is one of the function. Take this username and password outside. Only browser and login could be one more function. Function login. Login is another function. Okay, and function add employee. This is another employee. Okay, so we need to complete that add employee after clicking and save. we need to do some validation, whether employee has been created or employee is not created or not. We need to add that validation. Understand that we are, as of now, we have not added it. Okay. Now you can create functions like this. Every small piece of functionality, then you can make it as one function. Inside the function, you can write the code. Getting what I'm saying here? So now instead of writing the entire script once, then in the flow, whatever the script I have written, the script contains multiple functionalities. I can break the script into multiple functionalities. Okay, depends on how many functionalities that you have got. Normally, this is how we do. Okay, we don't directly write the scripts inside the actions. We don't write the scripts inside the actions directly. So what we do is we will first we will understand how many functionalities are there. Then for each one small functionality, then we will create one function. Why we need to do this? Because see, every piece of code or every functionality may not come only in one test case. So single small piece of functionality may repeat in multiple test cases or multiple scripts. Now when you say login here, for every scenario that I take, login will be repeated. Right? Or launch browser. Almost for every scenario, I need to launch the browser. Right? And remaining things also, many of the functionalities will be repeated. But just for launch browser, I cannot create one individual action. Okay? So when you are creating an action, it could be some big functionality. But launch browser is just a kind of one event. If you create one action for that, then the action will not be alone. Like it creates again local repository, it creates again one local data file, it uses a lot of memory. Script execution will be little slower. Compared with function, action will be little slower. Because action is like, action is not an independent one. Action has got dependencies like local repository, data sheet and all. So whenever you execute that action, it has to load all this and then execute it. But function is not like that. Function will not have any local repository, function will not have any shared repository, or function will not have any data sheet or anything for it. So if you call the function in one action, function will use whatever associated for the action automatically. Okay, now that is fine. Understand, right? What I am saying here. So we are not writing any script now. What we have done, whatever script that we have written, I just I broke entire functionality into multiple functionalities. That is called as functional decomposition. We call it as functional decomposition in the sense converting every functionality into the function, user-defined function or a procedure. The reason why we do this is to bring more reusability of every functionality for easy maintenance. Okay. Now what you can do is here, if you keep these functions inside the action directly. If you keep launch browser, where I have created these functions inside action 1, right? Inside action 1, launch browser, login, or add employee, all this where I have created inside action 1. If you create and if you keep those functions inside action 1 directly, then these functions are called as local functions. If you keep the functions inside the action, those functions are called as local functions. When a function is called as local function, that function can be used only in that particular action. So launch browser is in action 1 of so-and-so test. So the launch browser can be used only in action 1 as of now, because that is there inside action 1. But what I have to do now, I need to make it as reusable. I need to make it as global to use anywhere, wherever I want. Not only in action 1, I want to use it in different places. Then in such cases, what you need to do is, you should not keep that function inside the action. You should not keep it. Then what should I do? Instead of keeping that function in the action, where should I keep those functions? Then this is where there is something called function library we created. Okay, so there is something called function library. So what is meant by function library exactly? here is a function library is nothing but it's a repository of all the functions. If you want to make the functions global, or if you want to make your functions reusable to use it in different tests, or to use it in different actions, then you should not keep those functions inside the action. You have to keep them in external file. All these functions should be kept in external file, and then you can import that file into the script. Like when you are if you are from Java background, or if you are from .NET background, anything. If you are from Java background, you associate jar files. Okay, so if you want to use the methods and all for one category, one jar file might have been created. So when you associate that jar file, the methods will be imported into your project. You can use those methods. If you don't import that jar file, you will not be able to use that particular method. Similarly, in C# and all, you create class of files. You create class files. So inside each class, you create lot of methods and all. So if you want to use those methods in a different project, you associate that class, or you associate that DLL. Right? So in C# and all, DLLs you create. So if you want to use those methods, you associate the DLLs. That's it. So similar to those DLLs or jar files, in UFT or QTP, you call it as function libraries. Function libraries are nothing but the repository of the functions, user-defined functions. So why do we need to create that? Because the functions are reusable, or I need to reuse the functions in different places. So if I want to reuse the objects, what I do is test objects and all, I store them in shared repository, external repository. Wherever I want to use those objects, I am associating that repository using those objects. Similarly, these functions, whatever I have created, I need to use it in different places. Right? Then such cases are to do, instead of keeping those functions inside the action, you keep them in external file, call it as function library. Okay. So what I have to do now, instead of keeping the functions in action 1, I need to move all these functions to the library, and then I need to use those libraries in my script. Okay, write down function libraries. Function libraries. Getting right what I am saying here? So which are very important things. Function libraries. A function library is nothing but a repository of all the functions, all user-defined functions. A function library is nothing but a repository of all user-defined functions. Okay. So here in UFT, a function library can be in 3 different extensions. For shared repository, only one extension called TSR. That's it. And for function libraries, there are 3 different extensions. You can use any of the extension that you want. Okay, write down extensions of function library. Extensions of function library. One is VBS, second one is QFL. QFL stands for Quick Test Function Library. That's QFL. Quick Test Function Library. Third one is TXT. Normal notepad file, text file. So there could be 3 different extensions. Any of the, you can save the library with any of the extension file type here. So VBS is one type, QFL is another type, and TXT is another type. So if the UFT or QTP supports all 3 extensions. Next, write down creating new function library. Creating a new function library. So here we can create the function library in 2 ways. We can create the function library in 2 ways. One is from UFT, second one is from Notepad. One is from UFT, second one is from Notepad. You can do that. Okay, if you want to create the function library from UFT, what you do is, in the UFT, go to File, New, and can you see there is something called function library, new function library here. So select that new function library here. Then as soon as you click on new function library, it will ask you to provide the path where that function library should be stored, and then it will ask you to give the name of that library. You can see that 3 different extensions are showing here: QFL or VBS or TXT. If you are creating the function library from UFT or from QTP, okay, and if you don't give any extension in file name, by default it will take QFL. Okay, right on. QFL is default function library type when we create the library from UFT. QFL is the default function library type when we create the function library from UFT. Okay. So now let us do one thing. Let's save this library in a different location, and I will go to the UFT, and I will say I have created something called learning here. Then I'm creating a folder called function libraries. Then in this, okay, we can give the name of the common functions that I am giving. Normally, when we are creating function libraries, right, functions are into different categories. We will make the functions into different categories. Like some functions, whatever we create, some functions will be used in any of the project, not related to. We create some functions which irrelevant to the project, with irrespective to the project. Like reading data from Excel, one function we create to connect to the Excel, read entire data. But that reading data from Excel not related to particular project. You can use that in any project, not only RHRM, any project you can use the same function. Or I need to connect to the database, I need to make the database connection. So database connection will be common in any of the project, but the only thing is arguments will be changing, the parameters will be changing. Right? And like, okay, generating some log files, external logs. We are using report event, right? But instead of that, we can use our own customized ones. Right? Then those functions for any project, not for one project, you can use it for any project, whatever you want. So those functions are, you can make it as generic functions. But not some functions, like login. That login function is only for this RHRM. You cannot use it in different applications. In different applications, different fields may come. Right? But in that application, in almost every scenario, you use it. Or navigation in this application. So these some of the functions like this will be used in this application only, but in all the modules. So you can call them as application specific functions. Or some functions we use in only one module, all scenarios in particular module. So you can categorize them into module related functions. So like this, we will create different libraries, not one function library we create multiple function libraries by categorizing those functions. Like generic functions are some, application related functions are some, and module related functions, and some event level functions, and all slowly it will come. Okay, so like this we create. Now I made it as common functions, or you can also make it as orange HRM functions, or application specific functions, you can call it as orange HRM functions or application specific functions. Then if you don't give any extension, by default it will take it as QFL. So I'm not giving any extension here. I'm just clicking on enter. So file has been created. Then you can see the extension on top here. What is the extension it is showing? It is showing it as a QFL here. If you have given .vbs, then it will also do vbs. But when it comes to the execution wise inside UFT, it won't make any difference. QFL and vbs. So this is one way of creating. Now what you can do is, if we create a blank function library, then now since you have made all these functions, right? Cut and paste from action to library. So now your function library is ready. Remember, inside one function library, you can store n number of functions. It is not like only one function or two functions we can store. N number of functions can be stored inside the function library. So that is one way of creating the function library. You got it? So what you do, one way is creating library. Go to UFT, file, new function library, and select the part of the library where that library has to be stored and give the name of the library. Click on OK. Then the library file will be created. You can move all the functions from your action to library and save it. Or you can create a function inside the library directly. Here we created the functions inside the action and we copied. But instead of that, what you can do, you can directly write the function inside the library if you want. Okay, but most of the times, we will write inside the action, because when we write inside the action, all the methods and all will be, clearly displayed. Inside library, those methods and all may not display in the drop down and all, but in action and all it will display. All the objects from the repository and all normally will display in action, not in the library. So writing the script will be easy inside the action, will be faster too. So we will write the script and make the functions inside action, and then we will move it to, once we feel that the function is working, then we will move it to library. Getting what I am saying now? Okay, this is one way. And another way of creating the function library. You open the notepad, and you can paste all the functions in the notepad, and then you can save the notepad here. Okay, so you can save with the .txt extension by navigating to, you have to navigate to that particular path where your library is there, and you can save with the .txt, because as I told, function library can be a txt file also, or you can save it in VBS file. If you want to save it in VBS file, select the save as type all files, then you have to give the extension as VBS, or you can do QFL extension, anything. If you don't give any extension, it will take it as txt. From notepad, if you don't give any extension, by default it will take it as txt, and from UFT it will take it as QFL. Or if you want, you can paste all those functions in VBS editor or somewhere like that, and you can save it, no problem. Got what I am saying? So this is how normally we create the function libraries. Now, I have moved all the functions to the library. Then I have to execute those functions in a flow, right? Depends on what flow that I want to execute. First, I need to launch the application. Second, I need to log into the application. Third, I need to create the employee. Right? Then, how can I execute the function? How can we call? It's a call statement we can use. The same thing, whatever we have learned in the previous step, same way we can execute the function in UFT also. Then what we can do here? Call launch browser. This is one function. But now, when I run the script, will that function executed? No. The reason because, see, where that function is stored? External, right? So we created that function library, but where that function library is stored? Outside UFT, somewhere else it is stored. So if you want to use those functions inside the test or inside the action, you want to associate that particular library to the test. Then only we will be able to use the library, or sorry, those functions in our test. Similarly, even when we store the objects in the shared repository, we will not be able to use that object directly in the action. What did we do for that? Once we create that shared repository, we associated that shared repository and used inside the action, right? Similarly, the function library also. If you have created function library and stored all the functions in the library, then if you want to use those functions inside the test, or inside that means all the actions inside the test. Obviously, if you say test actions, you write the programs and all inside the actions only, right? If you want to use them inside the test, you have to associate that library to the test. Then, how do we associate the library to the test? Right now, associating function libraries to the test. Associating function libraries to the test. So yesterday we have seen something called relative path folders, right? We created relative folders something. Okay. So one way is using settings window for that particular test. Using settings window, go to File, Settings. In the settings, can you see a tab called Resources, and then in the Resources, go to the Library section. Under Libraries, click on Add button, and then navigate to the library and select the function library here. Now, if you see here, as soon as I select that, it is giving one. It is asking for one question here. What is that? Do you want to add that relative path? Function libraries is the relative path for the library whatever I have selected. Do you want to add that relative path to the folder? Okay. Yesterday whatever we have seen. If I click on S, what it shows here? Only name of the library it is showing, but it is not showing the path. Okay. Now what happens is, the path will be added here. You can see the path has been added. Okay. Relative path is added here. So now the function library, how it will be associated, or how the function library will be located now is, first what it will do, it will go and search the library in the first path. In case if it is not there in the first path, it will come to the second path. It is not there in second path, it will go to the third path or fourth path. The library will be searched in all the folders. So this is how we can manage the relative paths. In case if the relative path is changing for any of the files from system to system, all possible relative paths you can add and then you can use them. Okay. So you can set up the order search option. So if you can do like this. So first search in this, if it is not there, search in this. Okay, order you can set. So this is one way of associating the library. What did we do? File, Settings, Resources, and Library section, add that library. But you can associate, you can add that relative path or do the absolute path, it's not a problem. But that you have to tell here. So one way of associating the repository is go to File, Settings, Resources, and Library section, add the library. One way of associating the library. Right. Second way. Second way is runtime method. Using a method called execute file. Method name is execute file. Okay, so there is no space between the execute and file. It's a single method. You can say execute file, and give the absolute path of the library here. You have to provide the absolute path. Syntax is execute file and absolute path of the function library. Okay, so this is runtime method. In the sense, library will be loaded, function library will be loaded only when the script is executed, or when that method is executed. That time libraries will be function library will be loaded. All the functions will be available. But while writing the script, those functions will not be available, because while writing the script, function library will not be associated, because it's a runtime method. Okay, so we will understand the differences and all slowly, not now. Okay, once we will complete this piece of code. Write the third method. Keep 2 lines gap or 3 lines gap. I need to give some notes for the execute file method. Okay, because when we have multiple methods for same purpose, obviously there will be some difference, right? So we need to understand that difference as well. So we need to write some notes for this method. Keep 2 lines or 3 lines gap. I will come back to this and explain in detail the differences between all this. Okay, and write down. Okay, called load function library. Load function library. So when we say load function library, this also uses to associate function library. You can associate multiple function libraries by using load function library. You can associate multiple function libraries at a time. Okay, and you have to provide the absolute path of the repository. Okay, so this also same definition is same, but there are slight differences. The scope will be changed. Load function library will load for entire test. Execute file will load only for particular action. Method. Load function library is a runtime method again. This is also a runtime method. So function library will be loaded only when that method gets executed. Okay. So keep 3 lines or 4 lines gap for this also, and also write a quotient difference between execute file and load function library. That is one of the interview question also. Keep the gap, because our today's intention is not to understand, today's purpose is not to understand this method, but we will anyway. I will come back to this method and explain. Okay, so keep some gap to write the differences between execute file and load function library. And fourth loading function library is something called AOM. Okay, AOM, that means automation object model, we call it as, where you access the features of UFT or you access the tool programmatically. You can do settings or load all the files and all by using external program. That's called AOM. AOM normally we use API of UFT and all, but I'm not going to tell that script as of now. Keep some gap there. Okay, so we will cover them slowly. Fine. Anyway, whatever the method that you use as of now, but you have to associate that function library to the test to execute it. Fine. Now I have associated that function library to the test. I have associated it. Then call all the functions in your flow. Call login now. Call add employee. Okay, and then I will write the script for logout as well. So for logout, you need to click on welcome admin link. Already we have used that. Then you need to click on logout link after that. I will make this program now. Set. Fine. Logout. Can you do with browser why you need to create the function inside the action. Okay, you can directly write the function inside the library only directly. Why we write inside the action and then we move that to the library? Yes, so if you directly write that, it cannot retrieve objects from repository. When you directly write the function in the library directly, the library cannot access the objects from repository during design time. But while running, it can access. Runtime it can access, but during design time, library cannot access the objects from repository. That is the reason why we create the function inside the action first, and then we will move that to the, once we create the function, we feel that it is working, then we will move into the library. Okay. So you can directly say, if you want to type that object name and all here, you can do that. But that will take a lot of time again. So what you can do is dot page dot link. First you need to click on welcome link. Dot link. You need to click on logout link. Then you have to verify logout is successful or not. Dot web edit of username dot exist. So if you log out, username object should exist, right? It has to go to the login screen again. So that means username field exists means logout is successful. DLN check username field. If username field equals to true, then what you can do is you can say report event make pass, then you can say logout from application. Logout is successful. Else report event make fail and logout from application. Logout is not successful. Okay. So you don't need to use exit run. The reason because it's the last step that we execute. Or if you want to still place it, then no problem. But it won't make much difference in the current context. But certain situations it may happen. You need to log out with admin, then you need to log in again. So the flow remains continuous for now. As of now, let it be. Okay. Move this to RLHRM functions. Call logout. That is called functional decomposition that we have written. Everything we converted into the function, and then we are calling the functions inside the action. Lines of code will be reduced, okay, as well as we are bringing more reusability. Okay, now just go back where we have started this. Why we have started this? See, sometimes when I run the script, every time it is trying to execute from beginning. Every time it is trying to execute from beginning. But sometimes, we have already logged in. So that time I don't want to execute login. I directly want to execute add employee. Right? So when you directly write the code like this, or assume you have called the functions or you have directly written the code here. Every time when you click on run here, every time it will try to execute from first function to last function. First it will execute launch browser, it will execute login, it will execute add employee, it will execute logout. Every time it will do the same. Okay. So in case if the application is already launched and already logged in, script may fail again. Or if you say that okay, no, if it is already open, close it and then rerun again, takes a lot of time again. Unnecessarily closing, relaunching and again, it takes a lot of time. So what we have written till now, is a functional decomposition, but inside it we have to parameterize. Probably we have not used parameterization yet. We are going to use it. But if you pass the data, that first name, last name, login, username, password, everything, like whatever the inputs that we are providing, that data probably we may take from a data table or we may take it from external Excel, whatever it is. But we are going to do the parameterization. This is hybrid, data-driven approach. Come functional decomposition approach. Data-driven plus functional decomposition. We call it data-driven in the sense data has been parameterized from external sources, whereas functional decomposition in the sense every functionality is broken down into small functions. So we are making the function calls. Advantage with this approach is this kind of scripting. We can test that application with different sets of data. So it's okay. Here we hard coded. As of now we hard coded, but we are going to change it. Parameterization we can do so that you can change the data anytime that you want, and you are bringing more reusability of the code so that every functionality can be reused. You don't need to spend same amount of efforts every time for every script. So in the automated script that you take going forward, one or other function may come from other functionality or other script. So once you have all the functions created like this, writing the script will be very easy for you. Right? Getting what I am saying? But now disadvantages with this approach is how we are calling the functions directly inside the action one by one. Every time it will execute in the same flow, whatever the flow is defined here. Whatever the flow is defined here. But tomorrow, if the flow is changed, I need to execute one of the function and I need to skip one function out of that flow. So according to that situation, one function has to be skipped. Again, I need to open the script and I need to modify it. Getting what I am saying here? That will take a lot of time. No need to get confusion. All this we are going to learn going forward, but I am just trying to explain the approach that we follow. So what we do now? Okay, so we have given the flexibility to run with any set of data. We have given the reusability of the code. But with this approach, we have not given the flexibility to run in any flow. Flow is hard coded here. So you can run the script only in this flow. If you want to change the flow, you can go to the code and modify the code. That means come to the action and then do the modification. That is the problem again. If you feel that, okay, no, that is the same flow every time I need to execute, no change in the flow. If you are confident about that, you follow this approach. But if you say that, no, okay, what in case tomorrow a new functionality has come, a new function has to be placed in between. Or what in case like, I want to skip one of the function here, I don't want to execute one of the function because situation is different now. If you get this kind of questionnaire, this approach will not give you the solution. So what we do now is, instead of directly calling the functions like this, remove that. What I am doing now, I am creating one Excel file. And can you create a sheet name, anything you can do. But normally, going forward, we can update this. Sheet name and test case script name, whatever the script that we are creating would be same. So that script will automatically connect to the sheet. Okay. So as of now, let it be. Then you pass it as keyword. Then you can call it as to execute. You can leave it as to execute. Then you say write all the functions here. Launch browser, login, give the basic flow. and add employee and log out. Give the flow here. Then give yes or no. Give yes or no. For every test case, you create the table like this. Okay. Whatever the flow that you need to execute, here's the functions, list of functions there. And every function, so you will have yes or no, that to be executed or not to be executed. Then you save this, where we can save under D drive, under UFT, under learning, then under this, you can save it as data. Under data, you can give execution flow. File name is execution flow. Save it. Okay. Now, in the script, set str execution file, execution flow file equals to what is the file name we have written? Execution flow dot xlsx. Set oxl equals to create object excel dot application. We have learned this in video. Then set o workbook equals to oxl dot workbooks dot open and then str execution flow. Set o sheet equals to o workbook dot worksheets of sheet name we can provide or one, that means first sheet we can say. Total rows equals to o sheet dot user range dot rows dot count, total number of rows I am giving. Okay. For I equals to, let me know if you don't understand this. Total rows. For I equals to 2 to, you know why I am using from 2 to total rows? First row is for column header. I don't need to get that column header because functions are written from second row onwards, so that I have given 2 directly there. BLN to execute equals to o sheet dot cells of I comma second column, because to execute is given in second column dot value. str keyword, nothing but function name. Keyword, and remember that even though I have written that column name as keyword, inside that I have written function names only. Keyword and function name will be same. Okay. But only thing is, now what we are trying to do is, instead of executing directly or calling the functions directly inside the test, we are changing the approach. That's it. Same execution, everything will be same. Changing the approach to give more flexibility. So every time when you are writing the script, you have to get the questionnaire like what kind of flexibility, what kind of reusability that I provide to the users. How which is to maintain my scripts in the future. Okay. So keyword is nothing but o sheet dot cells of I comma 1 dot value. What it does now? Okay, it will read that function name, whatever is written in the first column, it will read to execute. So if BLN to execute is yes, whatever I have written here should be executed. Getting what I am saying here? Write down 2 more methods. Eval. Function name is eval. Yesterday I told, but you guys were not here. Function name is eval. E-V-A-L. Okay. This method is used to evaluate a string to execute the function or procedure which is placed inside that string, or to take the object in case the string is an object. To take the object in case that string is an object. It takes the absolute, that's it. It takes the absolute of that particular string when you evaluate. Okay? Inside the string, or take the object from that string in case that is an object. That means take the originality of that string. That's it. When you say evaluate, it will take the originality of it. Okay. So now what you need to do is, when you are calling the functions, you have written the function name in Excel, right? When you read that function from Excel, it will be taken as a string type. It will be taken as a value, not as a function. So if you evaluate that, then it will take it as a function. So if you want to execute that function from Excel now, you have to evaluate and execute. There is one more function called execute, but wait for some more time, I will explain that. Okay. So what I am doing now is, if bln to execute equals to yes, then we're calling the function eval of str keyword. So that means first evaluate this and call it. Okay, you should not directly say call str keyword, because str keyword contains the value. If you evaluate that, function will come out of it. Okay, so evaluate, call it, or you can directly use execute. O workbook dot save O Excel dot okay. Once you do this, I'm closing the browser also. Okay, so now this is what my script is. I will run the script now. Let's see how it executes now, whether it will execute or not. It launches the browser. This is called hybrid approach. Each function is a keyword, so you are executing the functions from Excel. So in this approach, what you are trying to provide is, you can execute in any flow whatever you want. Tomorrow, in case if the flow gets changed or any of the functionality is not required to execute, you can easily manage it. Okay, so maybe the browser is not opened yet, it is still syncing, so that it is taking for some time. Let it be, maybe it could be some network issue. View last and results. Save. Launch browser was failed because it's not loading. The reason could be why network issue could be. Just wait. Okay. Fine. So launch executed, login is executed, and add employee is being executed. Okay. So actually it's clicked on save and it's clicked on log out also. But since the process was going on, it could not work. It actually clicked on that welcome admin, but still that login process, creation process was going on. It did not log out. Anyway, that is fine now. But it executed logout also. But actually, it might have failed, saying that logout is not successful. Logout from the application, logout is not successful because it did not log out. That's okay, fine now. Okay. Now what I need is, in this, I don't want to launch the browser because the browser is already launched and I don't want to log in. So what I have to do is now, I want to execute only add employee, I want to execute only logout. Then my script remains same. I don't need to change anything in the script. What I can do now, go to this path, go to this file now. Sorry, it stopped in between, right? So Excel we did not because exit run was executed, so it did not come here. When exit run is executed, it will not come to end. When it comes to the end, then only it will pick the file. That's okay, no problem. Okay, so now what you do is to give no. Those two I don't want to execute. Close it. So launch browser did not execute, directly went to add. That's a flexibility here. This is hybrid approach. Okay. So that's what hybrid driven framework normally means. So what we are doing, data we are parameterizing and every small functionality is being made as a function. So data driven plus functional decomposition plus all the functionality we are driving from external plan. So every function is treated as one keyword. So whatever the functions we need to execute in the flow, all this we will place it as a keyword inside the Excel. For every keyword, we will say yes or no. Whatever is said as yes, it should execute. Whatever is said as no, it should not execute. Like this, we write the scripts in different approaches. Depends on the type of the application. If you say that, okay, application is constant, that means flow will never get changed. Every time I have to execute in the same flow. Then we can go with data driven approach. Normally, you don't need to create one more Excel and then write the functions there. Or if you feel that no functionality is reusable here, no functionality is reusable, then what you can directly write that code inside the action instead of making it as a function. You don't need to do the functional decomposition. But data driven is mandatory almost because application, everything you have to parameterize. You should not write hard coded value. Okay, so you should always parameterize. So minimum data driven approach will be followed always. On top of that data driven, you can build like this. Okay, you can build functional decomposition plus you can go to keyword. That is the hybrid approach. Okay, so what we are doing now, scripting wise normally we are writing, but when it comes to the approach wise, you have to get the questionnaire. Okay, I am writing the script, fine. What in case if the same thing is repeated in a different test? Should I write again? I don't need, because script is giving me one option to create the function. So I make function and then I will make it as reusable. But how can I make that function as reusable? I mean, how can I use that same function in a different test? So if I keep that function inside the action, then I can use that function only inside the action. But how can I use it in different place? Then what you do? Store that function in a library. Then you understand how I can create the library. Okay, so we got it. Then okay, so if I create the library and place the functions inside that library, can I use those functions directly in the test? No, because libraries are saved external. So what I have to do now, I need to associate that library to the test wherever I want to use. Then only those functions will be available to the test. Then understand how we can associate the library, how many ways that we can associate. Fine. Okay, now I'm making every functionality as function and stored it in a library. I have associated the library and executed. But what in case if the flow gets changed? Am I need to execute the same flow every time, or the flow gets changed every time? Okay, if the flow is not changed, the flow is constant. Flow never changes. Every time it has to be like this, launching, logging, or the flow. Every time it is the same flow. Fine, you directly call the functions inside. But tomorrow if you say that no, flow may be changing. Okay, so not the same flow every time. Flow also may be changing. Today I need to execute these many functions. Tomorrow I don't need to execute these many. One or two needs to be skipped. Then we cannot directly call the functions like how we did earlier. So what we did to manage this flow better way, then we take all these functions into Excel. We have written the flow in Excel. We are asking our script UFT to execute the flow based on the flow which is defined in the Excel. That is where hybrid approach comes into the picture. So scripting wise it is okay, but when you are scripting, you have to think about all these approaches. Every time you have to get the question. Okay, you should not blindly write the script. If you blindly write the script and all, it will go one way. But if that is repeated, or if some kind of maintenance required, or some changes required, then maintenance work will be used. You have to reduce that maintenance work. You have to write your automation scripts in a way that everybody can make it. Okay? So this is the way of automation script. Sorry?
One person takes more than 20 seconds.
No, in this approach you cannot. But you can use something called transaction time. But how can you know, without executing that function, how can you know that it is taking 20 seconds? You have to execute, then only you come to know how much time it has taken to execute, right? Ideally, so if I want to know how much time it takes, but I cannot judge directly. Until unless it is executed, then calculated the time, then only I can say this much time it has taken. So if you say that it is executing more than 20 minutes, ideally you have to execute it and then you calculate the time. But you can do one thing. Okay. So, but lot of changes required here. For every step you need to calculate the time. So first you start counting. As soon as the script is initiated, you start your timer. Timer has to be started. So timer, to start with the timer, you have some utility object here. Mercury timers. The timer object. Okay. So you have this object. So it will start the timer wherever you have used this. Then this time, what is the use of timer? To calculate the time, right? How much time it is running on. For every step, you can, it will be keep counting. You can say, you might have created one function for one event. Inside every event, you need to use like this. Okay, first calculate the timer, how much time it has taken as of now in that timer, whatever you started. If the timer is greater than 20 minutes, then you stop that script there. And you can stop that function there and you can move to the next one. But that will be a lot of efforts again. So you got what I am saying? For every step, you need to calculate the timer. And if the timer is saving more than 20 minutes, then you stop that function, move to the next function. Possible, but not recommended. Possible, but not recommended. It is possible. Why it is not recommended? Because for every step, you need to calculate how much time as of now it has taken. First, perform one step, see how much time it has taken. Perform second step, see how much time it has taken. Third step, see how much time it has taken. So then only we can see what is the time, where I need to come out, right? So that is possible. Possibility is there, but lot of functions you need to create. But you can report, when you are providing the report, you can say that, okay, this event is executed at this time. This validation is executed at this time. You can write step while writing the log. When you are using inbuilt report, right, you don't need to do that also. When you are using inbuilt report, whenever you use reported.report event and all, for every step, it will clearly show at what time it has been executed. For everything, it is executed at 12.41 seconds. This one is executed at this, and this step is executed at this time. So it will show at what time that event is executed or that step is executed. But if you say that how much time it has taken to execute that event, it could be a little different. Okay, so that's not the recommended. Normally, when we come out is not for a particular function. When we are using synchronization, we have performed an event, but application is taking a lot of time to load. If it is application is taking more than 2 minutes or 3 minutes to load, then we will come out of that and then say that script cannot be executed because application is not loaded. Something like that, if it is application problem, we can come out. If application is working fine, then script has to be executed again. Okay? Yes. Of course you can do that. Okay. The function need to create it or add. Simple way, you just do it. Come here in case if the flow gets changed, right? It's very simple. Assume that the function has been created and come to the UFT and come to the flow, execution flow here in this approach. So during running, that function also will be executed, but that function should have been created already. Okay. So this is the advantage of using this approach. Okay.